So in this video, I'm going to talk about what enzymes are and their functions. And so enzymes are proteins that act as biological catalysts. So that function as biological catalysts. And so what that means is that enzymes allow reactions in the body to occur at a lower temperature. So it allows things to happen with less energy. And so, for example, if you have protein digestion in your body, if you didn't have the enzymes that allowed you to digest food, then it would take probably hundreds of years for the food to get digested, and by then you'd be dead. So enzymes are really important in that aspect. And so enzymes act on substrates. So a substrate is something that an enzyme will act on once again. So for example, let me write that down. Substance, enzyme acts upon. So for example, lactose, the sugar found in milk, an enzyme called lactase will help break it down. And another example is amylase, is an enzyme that helps digest starch. So amylase would be the enzyme and the substrate will be starch. And so there's also a chemical component of it called activation energy, and enzymes lower activation energy. And what that means is it allows the reaction to have less energy. It makes it so that a reaction will occur with less energy. And so this allows body cells to operate at a lower temperature. And then it allows reactions to occur more rapidly and more often. And so let me show you a diagram of an enzyme acting out on a substrate. And so down below is a good picture of what enzymes do. And so the gray thing here is the enzyme. The green thing is the substrate. And the place where they bind, right here, as shown on the diagram, is called the active site. So an enzyme is very specific. And so it's good to think of it as like a lock and key. Only one enzyme will bind to one certain substrate. And so that's called enzyme. That's called enzyme substrate specificity. And as you can see, the active site fits perfectly with the substrate. And so what the enzyme is going to do is in this instance, the enzyme is going to break the substrate apart to make two separate products. And so that is essentially what the enzyme does. And one important thing to note is the enzyme remains unchanged. And so as you can see, the products are changed, and the substrate is changed actually, but the enzyme remains the same. And so now let's talk about things that affect enzymes. So generally, temperature and pH can alter the enzyme, and so different enzymes function best at different pHs. So for example, you have enzymes in your mouth that digest starch, and so that pH will be different from the enzymes in your stomach full of stomach acid that digests starch. And so enzymes have different optimal temperatures and pHs. And so an example of different temperatures is we have enzymes that generally function around body temperature best, while some bacteria have enzymes that function best at like boiling points or like 100 degrees Celsius, even higher. And so what happens if the temperature and pH get too out of hand for the enzyme? Well, the enzyme, so too high or too far, two different temperatures and pHs. So a better way of saying this is extreme changes in pH and temperature or temperature will tend to disrupt the function of enzymes. And so that occurs because the shape of the enzyme is changed. And so that's actually called denaturation. For example, when the temperature gets too high, the protein or enzyme, in this case, can change shape. And so changing shape. Changing shape of the protein. And an enzyme is a protein, so in this case we're talking about an enzyme. And this, as a result, disrupts the function of the protein. And so once again, think of it as a lock and key, right? So if that's an enzyme originally, and then after being denatured, maybe the enzyme looks like that with a very different active site. That's the active site there, and that's the active site there. And so as you can see, it probably won't fit with the substrate anymore. And so that pretty much summarizes enzymes. If you like this video, please, if it helped you, please like it and send it to your friends.